spoke with the ranking minority member of the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, Senator Ron Latz, about the Senate DFL's call for gun reform initiatives. The two pieces of gun reform legislation, closing the gun show loophole and establishing a red flag law, are not new. In fact, you've been championing them for some time. Have the recent mass shootings in Texas and New York created momentum for change?
Well, Shannon, thank you for having me on today. The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes, because clearly we want to do something to stop massacres like what happened in Uvalde. On the other hand, we've had massacres like this on a regular basis for decades, and we haven't seen that brief moment of momentum translate into any meaningful change on the legislative level. Unfortunately, there are many of us who stand up and say, we got to fix the laws to make it harder for these things to happen. And we have equally vociferous people on the other side of the political equation here saying, oh, wait, not so fast. First, let's figure out how we can address the sadness that's here. And let's bury the people who died, and we'll give a little more thought and don't want to rush into anything. So we're getting pushback immediately all the time after these mass shootings, these horrific events. And the question ultimately is, are we able to overcome that resistance and actually get something done? We need something a little more sustainable in terms of the political pressure to get the change. And unfortunately, the only thing that may be sustainable is a regular occurrence weekly of these mass shootings, so that pressure doesn't let up. And of course, no one wants that. So ultimately, it's going to require, I think, the political will of the legislators and the constituents to be putting that pressure on their own legislators to make change.
As I said, one bill that you're proposing would close the loophole so that the loophole that people use to get around background checks, namely the private seller purchase. So if I want to buy a pistol or a semi-automatic military-style assault weapon from a federally licensed gun dealer, there is a process that would verify that I'm okay to make that purchase. But if I want to buy one from my friend's uncle, for example, there is no process. I can just go do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a two-part process to this. One is get you into a transactional system where you have to go through the background check. And then the second part is making sure the background that is checked has sufficient data in it to screen out those who are ineligible under law to purchase the firearm. The loophole here is the gun show and the private party transactions. Those transactions don't even have to go through the background check at all. There's just no system for that. You can go to the gun show and 90% of the sellers there might be licensed dealers that will run you through a background check, but there are going to be 10% of the sellers there that are going to sell you guns off their table or out of the trunk of their car without requiring any background check. So it doesn't matter if you're a felon, doesn't matter if you've got a murder conviction, doesn't matter if you've got a domestic abuse conviction, all of which under current law would make you ineligible to purchase a firearm. If no one checks on it, there's no barrier to you getting that gun. And same with the private party transactions, not just the gun shows. If you're buying over the backyard fence from your neighbor, same thing, no background check.
So let's say this bill were to become law in Minnesota, then I would not be able to make that purchase without a background check. But what is to prevent me from simply going across the river to Wisconsin?
Federal law. If there were to be passed a federal law, then you wouldn't be able to bypass Minnesota by going to Wisconsin. All of your purchases would be routed through a licensed dealer. Our proposal actually for the background checks would set up a required permit to purchase system so that you could get your background check when you obtain a permit to purchase your firearms. And then you would be able to go from a purchase from other sources, some private parties or at gun shows, but there would be substantial penalties for people who sell it to you without you having a valid permit to purchase. So your background check then happens at the point when you apply to the local sheriff's office or law enforcement agency to get that permit to purchase.
Your second proposal has been enacted in 19 states and is also part of the recent gun reform framework that has been developed in Washington, D.C. by 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats in the U.S. Senate. And I'll ask you more about that in a minute. But it's what people call the red flag bill, or extreme risk protection, or crisis intervention orders. It does appear that this initiative is gaining traction, and you noted that a majority of National Rifle Association members do support it. Why is it important?
Well, the fact is that there are people who have moments of emotional instability and where they just aren't themselves. And that includes gun owners as well as other people. And right now, there aren't any tools in the toolbox to separate those people at those moments from the guns that they have. And if their emotional instability, whatever the cause is, it might be the loss of a job, it might be a dispute with a neighbor or with another person, it might be the breakup of a relationship that's got them very distraught. And they're thinking either about suicide, killing themselves, or lashing out against someone else that they're having a tough situation with. Everyone, people have those situations, and those who have guns in the household or that they have access to are more likely, if they're going to get violent, to use the gun rather than some other means. Before there were this kind of prevalence of guns, they might get into a fist fight. I challenge you to a fight. Even if it's a knife fight, you're a lot less likely to die or kill someone. Or if you try to commit suicide with a knife, you're a lot less likely to be successful in your endeavor to kill yourself. If you've got a gun, you're 97% likely to kill yourself instead of just injure yourself. And frankly, suicides are the leading source of gun violent deaths in Minnesota, and especially in greater Minnesota, in the rural areas and other parts of greater Minnesota. So these so-called red flag laws give law enforcement the tools to get a court order, an independent, objective judge, to issue an order to surrender those firearms, and gives law enforcement the tools to go get them. And at least while the crisis is in effect, to separate those firearms from the person who's in crisis.
Before we go, I mentioned the bipartisan group of U.S. senators. They've agreed to a 9-component framework, at least, of gun legislation. And this would be the most significant movement toward federal reform in decades. What are your thoughts? And could successful passage of federal reform break the logjam here in Minnesota?
Well, yes, I think it could, or it might take some pressure off the incentive for the state to do something. It's really hard to say. The federal reforms, in my judgment, don't quite go far enough. And so I think we would still be pressing in Minnesota to make more meaningful change. And that's not to say the federal reforms themselves wouldn't be important if they're passed. One thing that's notably not on the federal list is more thoughts and prayers, which is the reaction that a lot of people who don't want meaningful change in this area turn to after every crisis, after every horrific massacre. They say, well, you're in my thoughts and prayers. We're praying for you. We hope this never happens again. We're sorry for your loss. But the fact is, thoughts and prayers don't bring dead people back to life. And the fact is, thoughts and prayers have been proven over and over again to be ineffective in preventing these kind of gun violent massacres. So the federal efforts won't include thoughts and prayers. They will include, a waiting period before purchases for assault weapons and firearms for people 18 to 21. But it won't ban assault weapons, which in my judgment don't have any meaningful value and have been proven to be very harmful in society at large. I think we at least ought to raise that age to 21, flat out, no matter what your situation is. We know well the physiology of brain development is that people actually under age 25, but certainly under 21, simply don't have the prefrontal cortex cognitive development yet to have better impulse control. That's well established in the science. It's actually a foundation for the way a lot of juvenile courts operate. But we don't, and we apply that to alcohol, we apply it to cigarettes, we apply it to renting a car, and we apply that to lottery tickets. For some reason, we don't apply that to purchasing assault weapons, and we should.
Senator Latz, we're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Shannon.